I can't do this anymore. Left my past all on the floor. I've been trying to keep it moving, now we going north. Going up 2, 3, up 2, 3. Got this joy inside of me because I can't do this anymore. Left my past all on the floor. I've been trying to keep it moving, now we going north. Going up 2, 3, up 2, 3. Got this joy inside of me because I got the key. We've been really moving places, always on the low. I was shining in the tunnel cause I got the glow. People really hating and it really start to show, yeah. We gon' level up again cause that's just how we roll, yeah. Came in with the sauce, yeah. Learned out from the boss, yeah. I've been learning lessons from the struggles and the losses. Praying for communion for the races since we lost it. I done had enough of it for all the pain and cost anymore. Left my past all on the floor. I've been trying to keep it moving, now we going north. Going up 2, 3, up 2, 3. Got this joy inside of me.
What is going on, Ram fam? Happy early Saturday to you. And again, welcome to May. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I actually have your quote for today. Today, May 3rd, your quote is, "Great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together." This is by Vincent van Gogh. So the sun is out shining today here in the DMV. What did you all do for yourselves? Did you get out already? Or you have plans for later on today? Today for my physical movement, I did this a little bit of work, but we're not going to count it as work. I got me some movement in, burnt me a little bit of calories, you know. It also benefits the yard. So today's guest, I have another fellow social worker, and we're going to talk about her career in this field, but also a bonus because what else is May? May is also Military Appreciation Month. So she is also a military brat. So we're going to dive into a little bit of her life as a military brat as well. So you all just stay tuned and enjoy today's episode. So I'm going to bring in, with no further ado, Miss Kelsey Wilson.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on today.
How are you today? And thanks for coming.
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes. So I always start off during our warm-ups. It's going to be some cultural questions. So for the people, where are you originally from?
Yeah, so I was actually born in California. That's where my dad was stationed. Back when I was 1993, we were living in Camp Pendleton, California, on the base there. So that's where I'm from. But I actually grew up in Virginia Beach and spent most of my life there until I moved up to Northern Virginia.
Okay, so you consider Virginia to be home for you?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. So we gonna get into, and our next question as well is, do you have siblings? And if so, what is your birth order?
Oh, yes. So I have one brother, and he is older. He's about 4 years older than me. And so I'm the youngest sibling, and it's just the two of us.
Okay. So, has each birth order has a particular description and characteristic. And would you say that the characteristics of the youngest, does that accurately describe you?
In terms of like, usually they're kind of more like, free spirited, kind of go with the flow. And the oldest is like the more responsible one. I would say, I'm pretty responsible, but my brother, he definitely is like a protector, kind of carries those characteristics of being like the older sibling.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to get into this little warm up here. So as a fellow social worker, let me tell you, just not worry about being all political and all of this. Just answer the question and let's see how Virginia says these particular things that you will see on your screen. All right. Okay.
Okay. So water. 2. Hair. Here. Sneakers.
Sneakers. Okay.
Mhm. Grocery cart. Like basket.
Basket. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, clutch.
Oh, no one has said clutch yet.
Really?
Okay, clutch.
Purse. It's an alley.
Okay. Oh.
Okay. It's like a hallway. It's like it's like a smoothie type of, yeah, it looks like a smoothie.
Okay, so it's not a smoothie.
Okay.
But it's a frozen thing.
Okay. Like an icy?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This is also looks like an icy or like a frozen popsicle dessert. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a boatload of stuff. Okay. Tank top.
Tank top.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Okay. That is all. That is everything. Clutch.
Yeah.
No one has said clutch.
What do they normally say?
A lot of people have said purse. A lot of
Oh,
people have said purse. A purse, little purse. I can't remember, but majority so far of my guests have been from the DMV, and they have also been fellow military brats or in the military. But clutch, okay, I like it.
yeah.
All right, so we are going to start. I guess. Well, I'll let you choose. Do you want to start with military brat questions or social work questions?
We can start with social work questions and roll into the military questions after.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, from where did you graduate?
Yes. So I actually went to George Mason for both undergrad and grad school. Studied psychology for undergrad and then continued there to study social work and conflict analysis and resolution and did a full degree program there. So was there at Mason for a good bit of time.
Yeah. So as I shared with you, I have a child at George Mason right now. He is a freshman studying cybersecurity. So we got a viewer said it's a wallet. A wallet. Okay, so you got your undergrad and your graduate degree from George Mason. How long have you been a social worker, and then specifically in the field of mental health, if there's a difference?
Yep. So been licensed since 2022, but been working in the field for about around 7 years. Prior to me starting my private practice, I was working in community mental health for a couple years, and just kind of continued on doing like individual therapy work. Now I just do my private practice full time.
Nice. What were your first impressions of a social worker?
Yeah, so my first impressions of social work actually came from my family background. My parents have a nonprofit for at-risk and foster care youth, and so got exposure to the field through seeing them kind of navigate working in the community. I got a chance to meet a lot of great social workers who are doing the work every day to try to help people. And I always knew I wanted to go into psychology and social services type work to be able to help people and give back. So that was kind of my first exposure when I was in like high school.
Interesting. Okay. Your parents. See, look, that automatically just makes me want to segue. Oh, so your parents have this nonprofit. How long have they had this nonprofit?
Yeah, so they've been doing this work for over 13 years. They really enjoy the work. It's in South Norfolk Chesapeake area. they have 2 locations, one in the South Norfolk area, and then Virginia Beach as well, and do a lot of community work, being able to help youth who need support with mentorship and GED program prep and finding job opportunities and being able to transition into being independent. So, yeah.
14 years. So that's not your entire life.
High school. Mm-hmm.
What is the name of their nonprofit? We may as well go ahead and put that out there.
Oh, yeah. New Vision Youth Services, Inc. And do a lot of volunteer work with the organization. And they're always running different fundraisers and opportunities for people to get involved and volunteer. So if anybody's looking for an opportunity like that, definitely feel free to look them up online.
Is it vision spelled correctly, or is?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Put that in there. All right, so 14 years. So which one of your parents or both were in the military?
Yes. So my dad, he was in the military. And I always like to say, like, both of my parents served in some capacity because, when you're a military spouse, you really do have to hold down the fort while your spouse is deployed. A lot of times you're doing a lot of solo parenting while they're away. And both parents are kind of doing their part in making sure that things are running smoothly with the household. So
what branch was your father in?
Yeah, my dad, he was in the Marines. He served 20 years. Yeah, so he really enjoyed his time in the military. And then once he got out, we just settled in Virginia and kind of continued to live there. And they still live out in Virginia now.
Okay. And what was his job as a Marine?
Yeah, so he was a gunnery sergeant, and he worked doing like aviation logistics work. And then after he got out, he worked a couple of different jobs, and he now does similar work, but with ships. So doing logistics for ships and crafts. Okay,
all right. I'm pause there. We're gonna come back to this social work stuff. So do you tell people that you are a social worker, or do you just say that you're a therapist?
It depends on the setting. If I'm talking with, other people who are in the field, they kind of use the term interchangeably. So I'll also use the term interchangeably. But if I'm like, coming out to kind of promote my practice, I probably would say therapist because that's the exact work that I'm doing right now. But for, sometimes I do use it interchangeably in my practice too, because I feel like social work is a great way to kind of describe the type of therapy that I do. It's very systems focused, and that's what social work is all about, like looking at the person and environment, how they navigate systems. And it also plays into how they maybe take care of their families or how they navigate work or, the type of work that we need to do that's trauma focused. Because I do a lot of trauma focused work in my practice.
Yeah. And thanks for breaking that down a little bit to say what social work therapists do, licensed clinical social workers. So psychology, you said you got your undergrad. Okay, so can you explain to the people what it is that a psychologist does versus a therapist?
Yeah, so a psychologist would have their doctorate degree. And a lot of times they do assessments. Sometimes they do therapy as well, just depending on the placement that they work in, or if they're in private practice and they've decided that they want to do more assessments, or if they want to do psychotherapy or a combination of the two. Yeah.
Now, how you broke it down, say social workers look at the person and environment and all of that. Can you explain the difference in how a clinical social worker would, when we're talking about trauma, well, we're not gonna go into trauma just yet. Overall treatment, a clinical social worker is going to help this particular client differently than how a psychologist would. What are our key differences?
Well, just speaking from like the social work side of things, when I do a biopsychosocial assessment, which is the first assessment that I would do for a client, I really am looking at the systems that they were involved in, like where they work and what's the family structure and how are they navigating like their relationships and what's going on with their family dynamics in terms of their children and things like that, and pulling all those pieces together to try to understand the stressors or the presenting issue that they're coming to see me for from all of those different lenses. And so I'm kind of looking at the whole person to try to help them solve whatever issue is going on. So it's clinical, but it also just takes into account like all these other factors that come into play. And a lot of times I'm doing a lot of linking and referring for my clients. Like if they tell me, oh, like my husband is going through this issue, I might pull up a resource for their husband and be able to give that to them, because when you work on the system, that's how you help your client to sometimes improve their life.
Yeah. Versus a psychologist is primarily going to be focused on what with the same client.
The clinical or presenting issue and maybe targeting that. But I won't speak for all psychologists, because I know some do that person environment work, but that's kind of some of the differences there when it comes to social workers doing this type of work.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So what is the very next question people ask you about your job or social work in general?
Yeah, I would say sometimes like there are stereotypes out there about social work. People think social workers do very specific niched work, whether that's working for CPS or working for, when I say CPS, I mean Child Protective Services, just for those who don't know, or Adult Protective Services, or, they work in the school system or something like that. But there's such a wide range of jobs that social workers do, working in the hospitals, and they're working in the criminal justice field, and they're also doing private practices and running their businesses, and they're coaching, they're consulting. It's a very vast, wide array of jobs that social workers do. And they're also educators, they're professors, they're speakers. Social workers are working in politics. And I love that, because, when you have social workers in leadership roles, they are changing systems like we were talking about earlier, and they're doing it well.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, speaking of doing it well, what do you think are the most important skills for a social worker to possess?
Yeah, I would say the most important skill is like those soft skills, like compassion and empathy for people, because that shows up in the room when you're actually trying to help people navigate like life stressors or trauma that they're coming to treatment for. But it also helps when you're working in other jobs, like I kind of mentioned, where you're running programs or you're the head of organizations. When you have that empathy and compassion, it shows up in how people get treated across the board, whether they're employees or other people that you're running these programs or organizations with.
Yeah. And so you specialize in trauma in women specifically. Can you provide us with your definition of trauma?
Yes. So trauma is such a broad array. It can really fall into so many different categories, and I'll name a couple. There could be sexual trauma, physical trauma, traumatic invalidation, which is basically where you go through a lot of different experiences where you don't feel understood. It could be financial trauma, and that could be at any point in time in your life where maybe someone took advantage of you financially, and then you kind of ended up in a hard life circumstance because of that abuse that happened. Could be emotional. There's so many different types of trauma. And so for people watching, I would say if you've gone through a traumatic experience where, you've been through a situation that caused you to either have now PTSD or just like a lot of residual effects such as anxiety or depression because of the trauma that you went to, definitely try to seek out a therapist that specializes in your specific type of trauma. I like to educate people on the fact that, it's good to go to a specialist who knows your specific area that you need help with versus, just saying, oh, like I'm looking for a trauma therapist. Well, what type of trauma therapy are you trying to get?
Yeah, we're interested in you. What interested you in specializing specifically in trauma? Wait, you don't just specialize in trauma for women. What exactly does your practice is your practice geared toward?
Yes, that's a really good question. So a lot of the women that I work with have gone through either sexual trauma, physical trauma, traumatic invalidation, or workplace trauma. And then I also work with military spouses and affiliates. So military children or veterans that have been in the military before and they want to come to work on, situations that they've been through, but they kind of fall in those categories that I kind of mentioned earlier. And we work through it through a wide range of ways. I do talk therapy. I also do EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy. Also do some parts work as well, which is where you look at different parts of yourself at different phases in your life that maybe have some things that are unresolved that need to be worked on. So really just tailor it to the individual person. But yeah, that's the type of therapy that I do.
Mm-hmm. And so, I think it's obvious, but what interested you in specializing in those particular areas?
Yeah. So when I was working in community mental health, those were a lot of the areas that I kind of saw as themes kind of coming up for me. And I noticed that my interest kind of peaked when I would be able to work on those types of cases. I've always been passionate about being able to help women. And I feel really empowered and I feel excited about doing work with women because I see them kind of go from a place of like feeling really impacted by the trauma that they have. And then on the other side of it, when they're ready to discharge, feeling so encouraged and feeling ready to kind of take on navigating life in a new way. And so that's what really motivated me to want to do the work.
What is, if there has been, the most difficult thing that you've encountered so far in the practice?
In my practice in general, I would say transitioning from working as like an employee to being able to run my own business. That was a learning curve. But I'm grateful to have really great mentors who kind of help me to learn the business side of things and also, provide support from a clinical standpoint, constantly doing consultations to be able to, continue to work on my craft, continue to keep other therapists around me who are also running their businesses around me kind of in my circle. So that's kind of really helped me with my transition. Been in my private practice for about 2.5 years now.
Mm-hmm. It's nice. Yeah. I thought I wanted to open up my own private practice, but yeah, as I'm learning, I'm like, yeah, that definitely can wait. And you mentioned peer support and supervision. How important do you think that is?
Oh, it's definitely important. And, even after your license, I think it's good to be a part of a community where you can get feedback and support on the clinical work that you do. I run a consultation group with other therapists who are running private practices. And then I also involve myself in other groups for like EMDR and, BIPOC clinician groups so that I can stay connected and be able to get ideas and keep myself fresh.
Yeah. And let's see. Do you have like a lot of connections like with your alumni?
Yeah, so I actually stay connected to some of the therapist friends from my cohort. We actually work together in agency work, and I keep up with them pretty regularly, at least once or twice a month. We're in consultation groups together. I think that's really important to be able to keep up with the people that you graduated with and see how they're doing. A lot of them are successful, so love to stay in touch and kind of see how they're doing. They're running businesses, running practices, and working at different agencies. Yeah, doing really well.
That's nice. Yeah, see, I wasn't physically at my school, so there's not like much of a connection with my cohort. I vaguely can remember names. What would you like to tell the next social worker or social work student?
Yeah, I would say don't limit yourself. Sometimes we go into school and we're like, oh, I'm going to definitely do this one thing. But with social work, you have so many opportunities to explore and also different populations that you can work with. So, say you work with one population for 2 or 3 years. If you decide you want to pivot, that's totally okay. I would say talk to people, network, make sure that you're exposing yourself to other opportunities too, so that you don't feel like you have to always do this one particular area or this one particular demographic. If you want to make a change, you always can.
Yeah. And yeah, I got to go back because I wanted to ask you, have you ever had to deal with transference or counter-transference?
Yeah. So I would say, of course, when you work with women, women, we all go through like similar life circumstances, similar life experiences. And so, might hear a story and it's like, oh, that sounds familiar to something that I've been through. And that's an opportunity to be able to like really connect with your client. I would say one of the reasons why I like working with military spouses, affiliates, military kids is because I've walked that life. Like I know that life experience. And even if our stories aren't identical, I can relate in some way because we navigated that system. And so, that's kind of an example of how it's not always a bad thing to have like transference or countertransference. Sometimes it can help you. And then in times where maybe it's more difficult, that's where consultation comes in and you can seek out help when you need that. So that's kind of like another help tidbit for like any future social workers out there too.
Yeah. And how important do you think it is to have this representation where your clients look like you look like them, y'all have been through the similar situations? How important is that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely market myself to make sure that BIPOC women know that I'm here to support. So that shows up in a lot of my marketing. I think it's important for BIPOC women to be able to have access to therapy. And so I do a lot of work around making sure that I'm putting myself out there in the community, going to networking events. People know that I'm available, but also like linking clients to some of my colleagues who are also doing similar work. Because sometimes it's a different experience going to a therapist from your own community. A lot of people find a lot of healing and support from that. And so I do think it's really important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, because I did actually start to think that maybe there are too many people with private practices. What do you think of people continuously opening up a private practice as opposed to there being like a group practice or just more people, I don't know, just coming together?
Yeah. Yeah. I think my perspective is like, if you know that you have like a specific niche area that you want to work on, if you can find an agency or a group practices that focuses on that, where you can be able to do the work that you're passionate about, that's great. But if you know that you want to do very specific work and you're not able to identify like a place that you can work to be able to do that in your specific area, then maybe that's when private practice is the best route for you so that you can actually do the work that you want to do.
Do you think it would be like I don't really know if power is the word, but like, let's just say your practice and then your friend's practice. And I'm just gonna say you both do trauma. You both are doing trauma, but like you said, you're specializing in women in the military community. And then let's just say your friend is specializing in children and LGBTQ. And I'm thinking like, okay, instead of both of you opening up a practice, can y'all combine together? But would that eventually a possibility? Because let's just say you're not friends, just say you're just associates. Do you think that people are doing that because there's a possibility of like who's going to get the insurance, who's going to get the taxes, or what? I don't know if it's a power, if it's an idea, if it's a like, what would be the difficulties in doing that?
Yeah. So I know a couple of friends who run group practices. So I'm not an expert on like group practice and collaborating and like running a business with a partner, because I've been mostly doing this solo. But I would say, there's a lot of ins and outs that come with running a business. And so as the owner, you get to decide your hours, you get to decide, how the business is run, how the marketing is done. But when you share the business with other people or someone else, you have to take into account like their vision and how they want the business to run and what hours they would like, to see within their practice. I knew a lot of group practices do let clinicians decide what hours they want to work. So maybe that wouldn't be a conflict, but there's a lot of ins and outs that come with running a business that, if you're solo, you can decide on your own. But if you have others in the picture, you have to kind of consider their needs and wants too.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but I got time to figure it out. Definitely for me. If anybody has questions, you all at any time, you all are welcome to leave your questions in the chat. I'm going to transition back into her life as a military brat. So 20 years, your dad was in the Marines. And as a lot of us know, once Marine, always Marine. So he not past tense Marine. And you said a gunnery sergeant too. So yeah, people still call him Gunny.
When they go on base, I do hear them say that sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's hard to transition out of. Okay, so I don't think I asked you this. You started answering it, but how many places have you all lived?
So for me, I lived 2 places. I was born in California. We moved to Virginia. My dad was stationed in South Carolina for the last like 3 years of him like finishing up his 20 years. And he would commute back and forth to come to our house that they bought in Virginia. And my mom like was holding it down in Virginia, making sure we were good going to school and things like that, because he knew he wanted to retire there. So it just worked out. But I know that was a very long commute to do on the weekends to be able to come see us. And I definitely appreciate the fact that he made that sacrifice so that we could stay at the same school and not have to transition schools by living, in South Carolina. So yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever lived on base? Do you prefer living on base or off base?
Yeah. So I only lived on base when I was in California with my mom. And that was Camp Pendleton in California, kind of near like Oceanside, California. And I was really young, so I don't have too many memories of living on base. But most of my life I do remember like living off base. And so maybe I would say I prefer to live off base. I know there's a lot of benefits that come with both. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess I would say it depends on where you are, but I guess all the places that we have lived, it has been like similar, because we have not lived on a base that had its own school.
Okay.
So that's the difference. So our kids have always been bused to school. But other than that, it's the same. It's just like it's safe. It's safe on base. But the kids would be like, it's boring. Kids can say that. That's often the feedback. It's boring on base. So do you ever have to answer any hold on. How old were you again when your dad retired? You said in high school?
So he got out in 2000. And so maybe I was around like 8 or 9 years old or so when he got out. I was pretty young when he got out of the military. And so I remember that day he got out, though. It kind of stands out in my mind of like that ceremony that they have when they are retiring and like, honoring the military member who served the time that they did. I remember him getting like, they give an award. And I just kind of remember standing up there with my dad.
Okay, well, shoot, go ahead, tell us about it, because 8 is young for a lot of these other questions. What do you remember about the retirement ceremony?
I just remember everybody being so happy, happy for my dad. And I also remember my mom being happy for him too, because of course, like she's been kind of holding down the fort on her end. And so, to have my dad like finish out his time and be able to kind of explore the next chapter, I think that was kind of like a celebration within itself for like our family to kind of come back together again. And actually help a lot of clients who, have had a parent who was in the military, and that reunification process and like the family coming back together. It's a complete like, dynamic shift from having a parent kind of deploy and be away from the family for long periods of time and then to come back together again. So that's what kind of stands out in my mind.
Yeah, reunification was definitely going to be next. So you said your dad would commute home to you all. Was that every weekend?
He would try to. Yeah, every weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a long
but
drive.
You know what? I mean, shoot, he was a gunny. For how long, to your recollection? Like, how long had he been a gunny?
Oh, I'm not sure how many years he was a gunner. I'm not sure how long he was, but that's the last job that he had before he had gotten out.
Yeah, ain't nobody gonna tell him that he can't come home. So that I can understand that. Yeah, that's different. That's a totally different experience. Okay, that's different. Well, like I said, still 8 is pretty young, but to your knowledge, was your dad present when you were born? Was he there?
So my dad was actually in Somalia, Africa when I was born. And he was working, and the Red Cross actually notified my dad that I had been born, and everything. And it's a little different now. I heard they kind of have better communication in terms of like when a baby is born, or there's like an update. But yeah, that's the story that my mom and dad told me. Like he was in Africa when I was coming into the world. So.
Okay. Did she have help with her? Was family there?
Yeah. So when I was born, actually, my mom was in California. None of her family lived there, so she was kind of, solo. Trying to take care of everything. My family mostly lives in Virginia. Have some family in Philly, and so when they were stationed in Philly, my dad's family is there, and so had some support with my brother's upbringing and things like that. But when we were in California, like my mom was solo. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was a civilian.
Mm-hmm.
Did she describe? Well, no. This is your story, not your mom's story. This is your story. She's just so young. Let's see. So he retired. You were 8 years old, and you started talking about reunification. So let's just go just a little bit further into that. Once he actually did retire, though, did it feel different to you versus when he used to come home on the weekends?
Yeah. I would definitely say you notice the difference because you have more support in the household. And also, like my dad, he was working on reintegrating back into the community, looking for like civilian jobs. And so, we were as a family, like noticing like all the transitions that come with that. And I, talked to my dad about that process, and he was basically like, he was doing it on his own, like just putting out his resume, kind of seeing what would stick. And I know a lot of veterans go through that process of having to like find a new job that's the right fit. He worked in a couple different roles after he got out of the military, but now he works in the same industry, doing logistics work. And so he really enjoys that as like a civil service worker. But it takes time to find the right fit. And so I know that's something that I focus on in my practice, like, military kids who have gone through that transition of like having a parent in the military to then transitioning to like working in the civilian world and kind of what that looks like and the stressors that come from it. So that's kind of an area that I definitely can relate to and try to help people with.
When you're okay, parenting, do you recall that it seemed as if they were like on one accord?
Yeah. So my parents, they kind of have different styles, but same styles at the same time. Like, I think, when you have like your one parent who kind of like takes care of everything, it definitely like releases a little bit of the load when you have two parents being able to kind of help with taking care of, 2 kids versus like one parent trying to juggle it all and also work at the same time. It's a lot of mental load. My mom worked in different industries. She worked in the bank. She was an entrepreneur. And now she runs her nonprofit with my dad. They actually co-founded that organization together. And so just kind of seeing her have to go from, having to balance it all to now having someone to kind of help step in and take care of some of that load. I definitely think it was like a change for the better. And it was more helpful to have like 2 parents to be able to go to, especially when you need to get somewhere, school stuff, all the activities, signing off on paperwork for school and things like that. It's just really helpful to have 2 parents there.
Were you raised kind of in a strict home, or was your mom like more lenient? That's what I mean by like on one accord. The assumption would be that a Marine is is like very strict and gonna raise a strict household?
Oh yeah. So I feel like when I reflect back on it, I think I learned a lot of my values from my parents, and I feel like the military system did kind of have like an influence now that I'm older and I can kind of like reflect back, like in terms of discipline, in terms of timeliness, in terms of, being committed to things. It's like, oh, did I just get that from my parents, or was that like kind of the military like influence in some ways that kind of showed up like in our household? But I'll say that that definitely helped me with being an entrepreneur, and it's something that I appreciate now. Like, running a business, like it's helpful to have those values, and I think I can give credit to, that structure that I kind of got from that.
Yeah. And did it seem to, so things obviously got easier for your mom, but once your dad retired and was home more, did that, to your recollection, change at all for you and your brother?
Change for me and my brother in terms of
as like, did it get easier? Did it get harder? What was it like? Because I think I'm hearing you say that your mom was just slightly a little bit more like not necessarily flexible, but she wasn't like gung-ho on everything.
Oh, so I would say things got easier because when you have the responsibilities kind of more balanced, it makes the household run a little bit smoother. I give my hats off to like military moms and even military dads who kind of have to take care of all the household things on their own when their spouse is deployed. Because, for those who never lived that life, like it can be a lot, especially if you're trying to work at the same time, like work a 40-hour job, and then you have 2 kids to pick up from daycare and school. And then you have to make sure that you're cooking and, making sure everything flows nicely at the house. But then when your spouse comes back and they can help, pick up some of those areas, it just kind of provides a little bit more support to the spouse and also to the kids who just kind of need to focus on school and everywhere else they want to go. So, yeah.
My kids recently, my older kids, recently had an interview, and my oldest, his answer, because my husband just retired 2 years ago.
Oh, congrats
my
again.
Oldest, thank you. My oldest is a junior in college. So, he didn't live here when my husband retired. However, they just did, this same interview on my channel. They just did it. And he said, of course, life was easier when their dad actually was home. And the one thing that he said was like the cooking. He said the cooking was alleviated because he cooked all the time.
Yeah.
Like, okay. But in honesty, yeah. My husband is a chef. Like, my husband is a chef. My sons are the chefs. Like, yeah, they cook. I just keep everybody alive. Like,
that's important. That's important.
If you want some finely chopped food and you want all these different seasonings and all that, yeah, you best wait for my husband and one of my sons, because you about to get some basics. You can get some basics with me. No. Okay, so let's see. Most of these we are going to, well, we can skip over the rest of those. Let's just go back to your practice. We talked about, was there anything that has been the most difficult? What has been the easiest for you?
Yeah, I would definitely say because of the way that I've been able to market and kind of put out there the types of clients that I can help serve, I feel like the easiest aspect has been like attracting clients who really want to do the deeper trauma work that I offer. And, I also like to kind of bring up the fact that clients who want to do EMDR, which is the eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy that I was talking about earlier, they see a lot of meaningful and intense results from doing that work. Because what it focuses on is like looking at past memories that they've gone through that were traumatic or stressful or triggering in some way, and be able to reprocess those memories so that they don't, feel as activated when they show up as like a trigger in their present day life. And so I feel like that's been one of the easiest parts, like that I've seen, is like attracting those clients who want to do that deeper work, and then being able to provide a service that they are seeing lasting results from, that they are getting a lot of benefit from. So that's the most, the easiest thing, and also like the most rewarding thing that I could say I've noticed.
Yeah. I think, of course, the natural next question would be, who is EMDR not good for? Who would not be a good client for that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, when we think about EMDR, it is a more non-traditional type of therapy. If you're looking for more traditional talk therapy, that would probably be the better fit than doing like a more non-traditional therapy modality like EMDR. Also, when you do EMDR, you are not verbally processing as much. So if you want to come into session and kind of be able to tell your therapist from start to finish all the things that are going on with your day-to-day, and kind of be able to work through those in that manner, EMDR might not be the best fit, because you're going to pick a target, and you'll check in with your therapist in the beginning of the session, of course, but you're going to pick a target and you're going to work on that memory until about the last couple minutes of session, because we want to do some grounding exercises after you've worked on that particular memory or that particular target. And we'll do grounding to make sure that you're feeling self-soothed and you're feeling, in a good place before you end the session. So for clients who are open to doing a little bit different style of work, EMDR is a good fit. But if you maybe don't want to do that type of work, it won't be the best fit.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned parts work as well. So if the session is occurring, how does this look, and how does parts work play into this? Or for someone who may not know, are those two different things, and can they not exist in one session?
Oh, that's a really good question. Yeah. So parts work and internal family systems, which that falls under, it is separate from EMDR, but they do integrate really nicely. And I do that in the work that I do, because when you're doing EMDR and you pick a target that you're working on, you're either following a ball on the screen, or your therapist is going back and forth across, the computer screen if you're doing virtual, or if you're in person, they're going back and forth in front of your person, so that you are reprocessing whatever target or memory that you're working on. And so in between you doing the sets, your therapist might bring up a part of you that's showing up, like the 5-year-old part of you, or the 10-year-old part of you, 15-year-old part of you, and explore emotions around those parts. Or sometimes parts are just very simple, like, oh, let's explore that sad part that's showing up for you, or that anxious part. And it really integrates really nicely when you're doing EMDR, because you can explore those different segments of yourself. But it can also be used standalone as well. Some therapists just solely do parts work from the start of the session to the end. And you just explore the different parts of you that need to be kind of looked at a little bit more.
Great, great work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think for me, I don't have any more questions. Other than, I guess we already asked, what would you want to tell another social worker? Where all are you? No, you said you did consulting. So let's talk a little bit more about your consulting. What is consulting that you as a social worker do?
Yeah, so I actually run a consult group for other private practice therapists. And we just meet once a month to be able to talk about how our businesses are going, any new ideas or things we should be considering or exploring. But I know there's a lot of different consultants who help people with their businesses in like a coaching fashion as like a consultant. And so I know that that's one option that a lot of therapists or social workers do. And then there's also like consultants that help with specific interventions, like EMDR consultants. And I actually meet with one of those once a month to get help with like on the clinical side of things. And it's just good practice, even after your license, to just kind of stay in consultation so that you can be working on your skills and stay sharp.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I guess it's that time. It's that time to go ahead and plug your social media and your practice.
Definitely. So if you are on Instagram, that would say that's the most active place that I am. Kelsey Wilson, PLLC is my handle. Definitely feel free to follow me there. Do have a few YouTube videos and podcasts that I've been on, and I post that on my website. So definitely visit me there as well. One of the things that I like to do is make sure that I'm updating, the updates with my practice on my website as well. And you can find me there at kelseywplc.com.
And what is PLLC?
Professional Limited Liability Company.
Okay. All right. Well, looks like we do not have any questions. Do you have anything that you would like to say, or anything that I did not ask you that you would like to inform us about on either end?
Yeah. Just wanted to kind of add that a few things about like the women that I treat who are affiliated with the military. So, I mentioned that I work with military spouses, our military partners. I also work with a lot of military kids, kids who had a parent in the military, and one of their parents either had PTSD symptoms and either it went untreated, or they did get treatment, but there were still some residual traumas that kind of impacted the family dynamic. And so if that is the case for you and you need help with that area, navigating some of the traumas that you went through, as a result of, parent not getting treatment or getting treatment, but still having some things that they went through, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I would love to be able to do a consultation to be able to help you through working on that. I do traditional therapy, and I also offer therapy intensives, which are extended sessions for clients who are interested in doing that type of work.
That is very niche. So being here, you have a lot of clients. You have like a big wait list.
So right now I am taking on new clients. So for clients who want to come work with me, I do have openings right now. But sometimes I do have, full capacity, and I always like to be able to provide referrals when that does happen. But right now I do have a few spaces. So for clients who want to come join and work with me, the doors are open.
Wow, that is very, very niche. And so you service clients where?
Yes. So I'm licensed in Virginia, and I'm also licensed in DC. So for clients who want to work with me, I do virtual for traditional sessions. And then if people are interested in a therapy intensive, I can meet with them in person in my Reston office, kind of near the town center area.
Is it all one-on-one? Do you do families? Do you do couples? What?
Yes. So I do individual work, and I do have a network of other therapists that I work with who do other specialty areas. So, if I have someone who reaches out who needs like couples or families or something like that, I'm always happy to refer.
She said refer. That's the favorite word, is refer. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, as I said, I think I have no more questions now. Except for our two closeout questions. How are you going to take care of yourself today or this weekend?
Oh, definitely. So I've definitely already started to enjoy the weather. The weather is so nice today. So I'm definitely going to go out there and go for a walk later, and just enjoy relaxing and just, maybe watch a show or be able to go to the movies or something this weekend. And I hope that you do the same. Do you have any plans for how you're going to take care of yourself as well?
No, not other than what I already did. I went and got me some movement. I cut the grass.
Oh, good.
But have you seen Sinners?
Oh, no, I haven't yet, but I heard it was good.
That's what we went and seen last night.
Okay.
Yes. So if that's the movie that you're going to go see, yes, make sure you go see that movie.
Okay. We'll have to check it out.
Yes. And so the next and final question leads us back to culture. If you were serving us breakfast, would you give us pancakes or waffles?
Oh, I'm a pancakes girl, so I would pick pancakes.
Oh, pancakes. All right. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and play this outro. Rest of you all, remember, take care of yourself. It is okay not to be okay, right? In the spirit of our mental health, reach out to somebody. And we are here. You have Kelsey's information. You have my information. You have Forest Therapeutics. So with that, play this outro.
I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I would like to thank my guests for joining me, or simply thank you for watching the pre-recorded episode. No matter what your birth order is, how you self-identify, and whether you like pancakes or waffles. If this is the first time you're hearing it today, I want you to know that you are loved. You were put here for a purpose that only you can fulfill. Until next time, take care of yourself. Be sure that you like and share the videos, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. This is Real Ram out.